Welcome to Philippine Constitution Unlocked. Today, we're unlocking Congress' mighty powers of inquiry and contempt. Let's dive in. Congress's powers of inquiry and contempt. The power of inquiry, or the right to investigate for lawmaking purposes, is Congress's authority to look into matters that relate to its responsibility of making laws. This power is stated in Section 21, Article 6 of the 1987 Constitution. It states, "The Senate or the House of Representatives or any of its respective committees may conduct inquiries in aid of legislation in accordance with its duly published rules of procedure. The rights of persons appearing in or affected by such inquiries shall be respected. In the case of Arno versus Nazareno, GR number L3820, July 18, 1950, the Supreme Court ruled that Congress' power to investigate, along with the authority to enforce it, is necessary for lawmaking. A legislative body cannot make good laws without having the right information about the issues it wants to address. If Congress doesn't have the information it needs, it must rely on others who do. Simply asking for information often doesn't work, and voluntarily given information is not always accurate or complete, so there must be a way to compel people to provide the information needed. As provided in Section 21, Article 6 of the 1987 Constitution, the power of legislative investigation is subject to three limitations. 1. The inquiry must be in aid of legislation. 2. The inquiry must be conducted in accordance with its duly published rules of procedure. And 3. The rights of persons appearing in or affected by such inquiries shall be respected. Also, where there is factual basis for the contempt, the resource person's detention should only last until the termination of the legislative inquiry. What is the power of contempt? The power of contempt is Congress's authority to compel compliance with its investigations or proceedings. While the 1987 Constitution does not expressly grant the Senate or House the power to enforce their inquiries, this power is implied and inherent. It is considered essential for Congress to carry out its duties effectively. Why is contempt power important? The Senate, House of Representatives, or any of their committees need information to make good laws. If someone refuses to cooperate with an investigation, the power of contempt allows Congress to make them obey, ensuring that important information is shared. Without this power, people or groups could block investigations, slow down the lawmaking process, or mislead lawmakers. What are the types of contempt? There are two types of contempt. 1. Civil contempt. This happens when someone doesn't follow a legal order, like refusing to show up for a hearing or testify. The goal is to make them follow the request. 2. Criminal contempt. This occurs when someone intentionally disrespects or disobeys Congress, like causing disruptions, threatening lawmakers, or lying during testimony. Are there limitations to the exercise of the contempt power? The Supreme Court is tasked to intervene whenever grave abuse of discretion amounting to lack or excess of jurisdiction is committed by any branch of the government. In the case of Neri versus Senate, the High Court nullified the Senate order, which cited Neri in contempt and directed his arrest and detention after finding that the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee committed grave abuse of discretion in issuing such order. The court noted that 1. The then Senate Blue Ribbon Committee violated the voting requirements of the Senate Rules on Inquiries, because only a minority of the members were present during the deliberation, and 2. The committee violated the publication requirement under the 1987 Constitution, which requires that the inquiry be in accordance with the duly published rules of procedure. When a witness's testimony is glaringly false, or when his or her answers are evasive, the court will not prevent the legislature from exercising its power. Only in instances where the legislature is considered to have ruled whimsically or arbitrarily in its finding that a witness testified falsely or evasively, or its finding is evidently without basis, may the court step in to intervene. The case of Ong versus Senate. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the Philippine government used public funds to purchase medical supplies. However, the Commission on Audit flagged issues in how the Department of Health spent these funds, raising concerns about possible misuse. This prompted the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee to investigate. Their inquiry focused on Pharmaly Pharmaceuticals Corporation, a small company that secured huge government contracts. Lincoln Ong and Michael Yang were called as witnesses. Ong was asked about the finances of Pharmaly, while Yang was questioned about his role in connecting Pharmaly to suppliers. Initially, Yang denied involvement, but later admitted he introduced suppliers. The Senate cited Ong in contempt for testifying falsely and evasively. It cited Yang in contempt for allegedly giving evasive answers. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of Ong and Yang, stating there was no proof they lied or dodged questions. Ong explained that Pharmaly's funds came from incorporators, savings, and loans from friends. His hesitation in answering some questions was not to mislead, but because he needed time to consult records and seek legal advice. That Ong may have shown hesitancy in giving direct answers as regards the documents pertaining to the supplies of personal protective equipment does not conclusively establish that he was evasive. The totality of his responses evince that he was mindful of his right against self-incrimination. He manifested his willingness to cooperate in the investigation by committing to produce and submit documents required by the committee. Regarding Yang's answers, the Supreme Court said whether a witness genuinely did not know or did not recall the answer, or was evasive in answering a question, is largely a matter of judgment or opinion. The fact that Yang made inconsistent or incomplete answers in the course of his testimony does not conclusively establish that he was evasive. While Yang initially tried to avoid giving information as regards his connection with a Pharmaly, he was able to subsequently answer in the course of the proceedings that he introduced the suppliers of face masks and PPEs to Ong. Witnesses who are charged by Congress with giving false or evasive testimony must be accorded stricter due process requirements, such as the opportunity to explain why his or her testimony is not false or evasive before being penalized, consistent with the due process safeguards used in criminal proceedings. In the case, the committee's grave abuse of discretion lay in its precipitate act of citing petitioners Ong and Yang in contempt and ordering their arrests without giving them the opportunity to be heard. Were the privacy rights of Ong and Yang violated? The court ruled that the investigation did not violate Ong and Yang's privacy rights. Since the investigation involved public funds, transparency was necessary. Yang's connection to government contracts made his business and personal records relevant. Given their involvement in public fund transactions, they could not reasonably expect these details to remain private. The Senate's request for documents was essential for accountability in lawmaking, not an abuse of power. Like, subscribe, and share. Let's empower Filipinos one click at a time.